What's good, YouTube? How's everyone doing tonight? This is your boy Raj here. The album I'm about to review is Prince's. I believe this is actually his 15th studio album, Come, released in 1994 on Warner Brothers. This would actually be his last Warner Brothers album, and this will be his last album he would release under his original God-given name. Well, for the remainder of the decade and shit like that. So yeah, singles albums known for are "Come," which was more like a promo single, "Let It Go," and "Space." Prince, of course, produced all of the songs. Of course, you had like, of course, Sonny T on the bass, Michael B on drums, Tommy Robella on keyboards on certain tracks, Mr. Hayes on keyboards, Eric Leeds on flute. So yeah. All right. So where do I begin with "Come"? Okay, so it's no secret that 1993 was a very transitional year for Prince and everything. You know, at that time, him and Warner Brothers were going at it, over because Prince wanted Prince, he likes to take control and shit like that. So what ended up happening, I believe, he, I think the label wanted, so I think what ended up happening was he wanted to like release albums at his own pace, but the label, they were like, you gotta take your time releasing your albums and shit. So he changed his name, to this infamous symbol and shit like that. So he changed the name to infamous symbol, with the male sign and the female sign put together and shit. And so that's how he got the moniker, the artist formerly known as Prince. And it was announced at his birthday that he changed his name and stuff like that, and he wanted to release new songs under the moniker. And the crazy thing about this is like, from what I looked up, this album was not really like a lot of these songs. Like according to like people like close to Prince, they said that he did not really intend to release this album and stuff like that because he wanted. I think he wanted. He was working on like the Gold Experience, which I would do a review on either tonight or tomorrow or whatever. But like from what I looked up, it was like unreleased experimental song that he just threw together and shit like that. So that year, he was working on this like musical called the Glam Slam Ulysses, which it was based off the story Homer's Odyssey and shit like that. And yeah, and so he was working with this playwright dude named David Henry Wayne while he was in New York. And at that time, Wayne was basically, he was coming off his Broadway play called Butterfly. And so the original concept of that musical was like a relationship between like a rock star and a fan and shit like that. And it's just like a sex fantasy filled kind of shit, you know what I'm saying? It was also around that time, he was working on this album and shit like that called The Undertaker. And that album was like a live album that he did like in one, I think it was, yeah, it was live and he did that like in one take and shit like that at his Paisley Park Studios. And that didn't happen, but the straw that really broke the camel's back when it came to like his relationship with Warner Brothers was the fact that the New Power, his group, his band, the New Power Generation, was getting ready to release their debut album called Gold Nigga and stuff like that. But I think what ended up happening was like they didn't want to release it at that time because I think they wanted him Prince to release an album first before the New Power Generation, excuse me. And so Prince, he wasn't really feeling that, and so the only way you can get that Gold Nigga album, if it's like when during his like his I think it was the Act Two tour at that time and stuff like that. Because he was just giving them out and shit like that. Or you can like he had this number like this 1-800 New Funk telephone outlet and shit like that. And yeah, so the album is kind of very hard to come by. It's long out of print, so good luck finding that album if you do find it. And so, with that being said, while he was working on what will end up being this album, she wanted like to remove like some of the rock tracks, and one of the rock tracks, some of the rock tracks like "Strays at the World" and "Endorphin Machine," which "Endorphin Machine" is ended up being on the Gold Experience, by the way. And so he broke the album down and he put like um what was it he made it out like a little bit more like stripped down and shit like that. And with that being said, a lot of these albums were like conceived, a lot of the songs off the album was conceived like old material, except for the song "Let It Go" and shit like that. So excuse me, yeah. So what Prince wanted to do, while he changed his name, he wanted to release this album as the last album known as Prince, and he wanted to release this album as the album like the rebirth of Prince or the artist and shit like that. So yeah, and so in 1994, mm, wait, so excuse me, had a brain fart, but so of course Warner Brothers, they accepted both the albums, but they refused to release both albums at the same time because it was too much material for the artist to handle. So he was like, "Fuck this shit. I can go independent and stuff." And so 1994 came about, and he started releasing music like out of his ass like crazy and shit like that. And the best known stuff that came out in 1994 was, of course, "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World." A lot of people said that a lot of people would know that song, of course, off the Golden Experience, but that it was like an independent single a year prior to that album, '94 and shit like that. So I'm gonna explain more about "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World" when I review the Golden Experience. So stay tuned. And so he dropped an EP called "The Beautiful Experience," which was basically like remixes of "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World" and stuff like that and shit. So pretty dope, pretty dope. And so also like while he was getting out his contract, um, he had to like get rid of all of the albums. So he dropped the Black Album, which I did a review on like last year, right after this album and shit like that. To get out of his contract. And so yeah, so when this album came out and shit like that, Prince he really of course didn't even want nothing to redo with it because it was just conceived like old material and stuff like that. And it's crazy because he was working on both this and Golden Experience at the same time. But if you ask me, I kind of feel like he probably thought that songs weren't really as good as he thought it would be, or he was just trying to like piss off his label and some shit. So that's like why the album kind of got lower sales and shit like that because of the fact that he wasn't really promoting the album like that, and plus with the whole controversy with the name change and everything like that, a lot of people were kind of like had like a little disdain at the time, which I'm gonna get more in depth with that when I review the Gold Experience and shit. So yeah, that's how this album came about. Okay, so look at the cover and shit like that. If you look closely under the print, it says 1958 to 1993 and shit like that. So it just gives you a sense of like, okay, the old Prince is dead and shit like that. So don't call him Prince no more. And if you ask me, if you want to be technical, I would say like this is the album where he unofficially, the first artist formerly known as Prince, like the unofficial start of that. A lot of people say the Gold Experience, but I kind of feel like it really did start with this shit right here. And so yeah, so this is the back cover, you know. Alright. And as you can see, that's a dope. That's obviously a dope picture and shit. And you know, it has all the personnel that included on the album. So yeah. All right. So song has 10 songs. So let's get started. Track number one is "Come." Um, this was like a very you guys should know what this song's about. It's like a sex song and shit like that. But it had that dope. It has like a very good beat and shit like that. And you know, I love like it had like a little like mid tempo like jazz kind of fusion going on with that shit. Very good song, but I kind of felt it was a bit too long and shit like that. I mean, it's a cool song, but it was just like 11 minutes was kind of like okay, yeah. Track number two, Space. Fucking love this song and shit like that. Um, I love the beat to that song. The beat has like more of like an atmospheric trip hop kind of vibe going and shit like that. And which I will get into that like once the album is reviewed and shit like that. So what I got from that song Space, he's talking about him being in love with this girl and he wants to take it to like another level, take it to like space and some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's a very cool song and shit like that. Very good song. Track number oh, I forgot to tell you. Check out the Universal Love Radio remix. You won't regret it. That's all I want to say. Track number three, Pheromone. Pheromone, like, um, that was a pretty weird song, cause it's talking about he's watching this couple doing role play while he's masturbating and shit like that. So it was just kind of like when I first heard it, it was kind of like I don't know, but over the years it just grew on me and shit like that. I love the chorus of that song. And by the way, a little trivia about that song: a more funkier instrumental version of the song was used as a theme music for the old BT show Video LP and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Track number four, Loose. That was like more of like a dance kind of track. I could have done without that song. Track number five, Papa. Oof, that song right there was just. It's like a spoken word kind of deal, but the way he did it was just so dope. Like, slap, slap. It's not. I'm not laughing at the song. It's just like it will catch you off guard, like and stuff like that. It's just talking about this child abuse and shit like that. But the one thing that really got to me about that song was I think the last line who said some shit like I think don't abuse your kids or they'll end up like me. I was like, damn. Whew. Yeah. Track number six, Race. Um, that was a pretty cool song as well. Self-explanatory. You know, he's just talking about like racism and shit like that. I love the fact that they combine techno to jazz on that shit like that. Very cool song right there. And then next song is Dark. Probably my favorite song off this album. And it wasn't easy, but yeah, I like that album that song. It has like that very soulful like a very it's like that smooth soul and shit like that. Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay. So yeah, I love that song, and I felt like I love to sing it on that song too and shit like that. All right. then we have Solo. Um, this was like one of the known songs like he was working with Wayne on. Pretty cool. I love this. How beautiful that track is. It's just basically him and a harp and shit. It was like very cool song like that. Then you have Let It Go. That's probably my second favorite song off his album and shit. Basically, he was talking about like the problems, he was facing with his label at that time and shit like that. Like he has lyrics like, "All my life I've always been I've always done what people have been told me to do and shit like." And so it's just basically saying like he just needs to let it go because he knows that more good things gonna happen to him and shit like that. And basically, it's just like I'm not doing the whole petty shit. That's basically what I got from Let It Go. Um, I love the drums on that song. I love how that beat. It kind of reminds me of something I would hear from like something from Brandy's first album and shit like that. That sound just reminds me of that. And the last song is called Orgasm. Interesting story about that song. From what I looked up, he basically was working on the song with well he was working on the song back in the 80s called Vibrator, and he was doing this with Vandy and shit like that, which you guys should know. Lead singer of Vanity Six, his girlfriend at the time and shit like that. So she kind of like sampled her orgasms from that song and just used it for this song and shit like that. And so in the liner notes, Vanity's like credited as like she knows and shit like that. So I thought it was pretty interesting. But yeah, and that's all the songs of this album. Okay, I gotta be real with y'all about something. When I first heard this album, I did not like it. I don't know. I've always just like something about the album. It was just when I heard it, it was just kind of like it just felt like incomplete and shit like that. Of course, because it was really incomplete, and I don't know. I felt like the sound was just like, eh. It was like, eh. But then over the years, like I'm listening to it now, and it's kind of like, to put it bluntly, it's like Dirty Mind and the Black Album basically had like a love child, and it would just be like this album and shit. Like I love how dark and this album was and shit like that. And I loved how he was just trying new things, and that's one thing I'll always give Prince. He does not like to do the same album twice. That's one thing I'll always give him and shit like that. And a lot of people were kind of complaining about the production, which yeah, the production was kind of like hit or miss at times. But if you ask me, out of all of the albums in the '90s, this is the one that really aged the most. Cause like a lot of people kind of said like a lot of his '90s work was like dated, which I hate that word so much and stuff like that. But after like re-listening to this album and I heard his two previous albums, like Diamonds and Pearls, okay, I can understand how people can say that's dated because like it had like that early '90s sound, of course, from everything from the power ballad of Diamonds and Pearls to the obnoxious rapping of Tony M and Jughead, like everything about that album, I can see what people say that's dated. The Love Symbol album, um, there was some songs I can see it was kind of dated, but there was other like timeless songs too, like "Sexy Motherfucker," "Damn You," um, "Love to the Nines," like. So I kind of feel like that album kind of aged a little bit better than Diamonds and Pearls, but I would say like a good 35% has a few dated sounds and shit like that. But this album, you can play this album and shit like that, and certain songs like I would say like Space, um, Papa, Dark, like it has like that kind of like timeless feel when it comes to like Prince and shit like that. But yeah, very good album. Well, I won't really call it like among his best work, but I would not call it like his worst. It would just fall in the middle and shit like that. So yeah, come 1994. Um, I think this album. I don't know. If, I think I don't know if it's out of print. I doubt it's out of print. I just find like feel like it's very hard to come by and shit like that. So yeah, and that's all the time. Stay tuned for more. Peace.